Trump is a puzzling and I could say interesting figure in this. Of course, he's so unstable in his behavior, in his demeanor, in his messaging that we can't make heads or tails of Trump. Uh, but you get the glimmers of an idea that he would like the war in Ukraine to stop, but he seems incompetent or unable to do so, maybe simply not in control. Uh, when you take an event as just occurred, where Ukraine has taken an action that is profoundly dangerous and destabilizing, there's not a word from the White House, not an expression of concern.
You know, it's unsettling how normalized silence has become in matters this serious. When a nation as volatile as Ukraine undertakes a dangerous action, and Washington responds with nothing, not even a whisper, that's not just strategic ambiguity, that's irresponsibility. Whether it's by design or dysfunction, this lack of public accountability undermines any notion of trust or transparency. Especially in a nuclear context, silence isn't just absence, it's a message in itself.
There is the inside question, who knew what when? Again, I think it's the overwhelming uh, view of experts that, of course, this was a CIA planned and executed operation, not carried out by 18 months stealthily by a country 100% dependent on U.S. intelligence. There are reports that the U.S. Secretary of Defense watched all of this in real time. Uh, Whether that's true or not, again, we don't know, and we're not going to know because the government lies and there will be no definitive proof of this. But all of that would run against the public narrative of Trump trying to bring parties to the negotiating table.
At this level of leadership, silence speaks volumes. If you're the president or even a candidate again, you don't get to stay on the sidelines when intelligence operations potentially escalate toward catastrophe. The public deserves clarity, not ambiguity wrapped in chaos.
And then when an event like this occurs, we have no explanation, no comment, uh, not even a question mark raised by these fools at the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal or the Washington Post, as if that's even a question to be asked. So, does Trump play a role in foreign policy? Not clear. But this just adds to the mystery. I would say that there is a quite good chance that Trump personally did not know. He's not an organized person.
That's what makes this so dangerous when power meets disorganization. We're talking about global consequences shaped by people who may not even be fully briefed or engaged. And yet, the weight of their silence, or their impulse, can ripple across continents.
He does not systematically process intelligence briefings. Um, Even so, if that were the case, uh, a president with his responsibility uh, after the fact would say something to the public, say something to his CIA, say something to the Russians, say something to not have this spiral into catastrophe. Again, has he said something privately? I doubt it. Not the way this White House works would this have happened and not be known in one way or another. But the fact, plainly on the surface, that he has said nothing in public is also profoundly insidious in its implications for trying to reach some kind of negotiated end to this war. Really, how can Russia negotiate a peace if complex intelligence operations?
It's a fair question. You can't build peace on sabotage. If we're pressing Russia to negotiate while possibly backing covert operations that threaten its security core, the word diplomacy becomes meaningless. It's like trying to put out a fire while tossing gasoline at the same time.
It's attacking the absolute core of its national security. are undertaken in this manner in the same moment that peace negotiations are being pressed by the United States? The answer is it can't. Uh, Russia can have no trust, of course, whatsoever in the regime in Ukraine. That goes without saying. But Russia cannot have trust in the United States government under circumstances like this either. It makes it extraordinarily difficult to see any prospect other than ongoing war. That, it is widely argued and believed, is the deep state intention. Uh, Again, that raises all sorts of questions. For what reason uh, does the CIA, MI6, and others uh, want continued war? Is it that it's just good business? Well, that's no doubt part of it. That's the mindset, that's the incentives. Could be true for Zelensky and his gang as well, that this is just the money-making operation. It's their business operation. It could be the arrogance and unaccountability and recklessness that we've seen repeatedly at play in U.S. foreign policy over the last 34 years. Um, Again, these are puzzles rather than, at least on my part, any kind of definitive answers because there's no honest accounting of any of this.
That's the hardest part. There's no ledger of truth anymore. In a world run by narratives and back channels, even the most informed among us are left with speculation. And without honesty, there can be no peace, only prolonged power plays.
A fundamental problem in reaching peace is that when one side shows restraint, if the other side interprets that as weakness, and now you go for the blood, then obviously showing restraint, which is a predicate for peace, becomes impossible. And that is the deadly logic that the neocons and the deep state have exercised for more than 30 years.
That pattern, mistaking restraint for weakness, has haunted U.S. foreign policy for decades. It's a mindset that rewards escalation over resolution. And in a nuclear world, that's not just misguided, it's existentially reckless.
Any show of restraint by one side has been interpreted by the United States as an invitation for being even more aggressive. And that is an argument that was immediately raised in the aftermath of this attack on Russia's strategic bombers. You see how clever Ukraine is. You see how they can have the fight in them. You see how this can must go on and can go on. And we have absolutely dreadful fools like Senator Lindsey Graham, who's one of the prime idiots of American politics, who chortles happily about such events. The implication of this, indeed, is that hardliners on both sides prevail. And when hardliners on both sides prevail, that means escalation. When escalation occurs between two nuclear superpowers, that means that we step closer to the risk of all-out nuclear war.
That's the chilling reality. When both sides are led by hardliners, missteps aren't minor, they're catastrophic. One misread signal, one retaliatory strike, and the consequences could be irreversible for everyone, not just the players involved.
The basic idea that U.S. leaders came to believe in the course of many decades that they could do whatever they want, and that view continues until this day, that there are no limits to power, and that ultimately the U.S. will prevail and therefore should do anything, uh, overthrow governments, kill opponents, support genocides, give intelligence to destroy strategic bombers of your opponent and so forth, because the U.S. Is and remains the unchallenged uh, power of the world. Of course, to my mind, this is an insanity, not an accurate description of the state of power in a nuclear age when the United States is vulnerable to destruction precisely by the kinds of actions that it instigates, that is, provocations against other nuclear powers. But I believe that it is that mindset at the core that led to the destruction of diplomacy over the last 30 years. I would say that there is a precedent for this. To my mind, Britain behaved with repeated, almost unrelenting lies and cynicism during its apogee as a world hegemon. And Britain never abided by treaties, always broke them at convenient moments, always viewed power as the ultimate issue. And that view came from Britain's superiority of power, not from the logic of conflict and the logic of peace. And so I think what we're seeing is a kind of Anglo-Saxon tradition over 2 centuries that is not yet brought under control of the reality of our time. The reality is a multipolar world, but the mindset still is of a unipolar world.
And that's the blind spot. We're living in a multipolar world now, but too many still act as if it's 1991. That outdated mentality, rooted in dominance and denial, makes the world less stable, not more secure. If the West doesn't recalibrate soon, it may find itself unable to lead the peace it claims to want.